morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and it is Monday. Missed you guys. I am here to talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written in the 6th century BC, presumably by a guy Lao Tzu, and is filled with all sorts of enigmatic wisdom and text on how we might live a more reasonable life. One of the things I like to think about with in regards to the Tao Te Ching is that it was, I don't know if I want to call it common knowledge, but it was something that was spoken about. It was something that people referred to. And as we evolved, right, as we evolved into more complex beings, we left behind a lot of what we already knew as a society. Before we started writing things down, we were able to survive, and we were doing the hard work of living, right? And it's really not that hard at all. Really, it's just, it is just that working on living meant, trapping, finding food, doing all the things that we had to do. And as we started to develop a logic mind, as we started to develop writing, as we started to develop shortcuts to living doing the hard things of living, we started leaving behind things like Tao, because Tao was hard. It is hard to live a life of Tao. Now, it's also, it's not as hard as living a life of logic. Because living a life of logic means you got to keep it up, and you got to do all these things that you're not necessarily inspired to do, but it is cause and effect. So you live your life in this way that you say, okay, well, if I do this, then I'll be safe in the future because of this other thing. And when we look at text that was written around the same time as the Tao Te Ching, when it was written, we see masculine texts, masculine energy texts like the Old Testament, right? That looks forward and looks at the masculine sort of will on the world. And then we look at this text, and so the Tao Te Ching and the Old Testament were written about the same time. And what we find is what Lao Tzu is saying is, don't forget this. Don't forget how we got here. Don't forget your relationship with the universe. Don't forget your relationship with nature. You are not better than everything else. You are not above anything else. You are working in collaboration with, you are working in conjunction with all things. You are Tao. You are God. You are here to express yourself. And don't have expectations of others. Don't demand others be anything for you. And when we do that, I appreciate that, right? I appreciate the things that were going on before that feminine energy. I appreciate that feminine. And I do believe we are moving into a time in which feminine energy will once again lead the way. But I can understand wanting to be avant-garde. I can understand wanting to be out in front of other things. And I can understand the European approach to writing things about how they saw development moving and how exciting that could be. And I think that how exciting it is to look at where we're going as a people is something that is definitely written about in the Tao Te Ching. Now, if Socrates and Aristotle and stuff had any connection to the Tao Te Ching, it may have altered the way they think about things, because when you get excited about stuff, when you get excited about where you're where you're headed, when you get excited about your expectations, about how much you can achieve, that will ultimately lead to where we are now, where so many people are in that state of 24-hour hustle, right? You're constantly in a state of stress, constantly in a state of wanting to achieve, wanting to be productive, wanting to do all of these things. Not that there's anything wrong with those things inherently, but what the Tao says, what the Tao Te Ching starts to talk about is like, make sure that you understand that those are provisional. That excitement is going to fade. Feeling strongly in any way. You know, we've talked about the opponent process. We've talked about so many things on this show, and we'll do that again at some point. But being able to recognize and stay calm and be able to view the world from where you're at, not from like the potential or the expectation or all of these things that you carry with you. There were a couple verses that came to mind while I was talking just now that I think would be great. I can't identify them at this moment. They came through my mind a little bit ago. But I'll go ahead and put that down for now and read number 1. I know that a lot more people have been listening because I've been supported, just my show has been supported on Noom Vibe now just as an expert voice, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to read number 1. For those of you that are new, this might be really helpful to understand where the Tao is coming from and why I am so excited about the Tao Te Ching. No matter if I pick a number and start reading it or not, I want to open the door for you guys to come up. So if you guys want to pick a number for yourself, for an oracle for your day, I'd love to find out what's going on with you and have you pick a number, and we can go through it and connect all the dots and see what the Tao has to tell you today. So I'm going to read number 1, Expressing Tao. That's the title of number 1, Expressing Tao. Words are particular. They cannot express Tao. To have a name is to be limited to manifestation. That which is nameless is the source of manifestation. Self-referential, those who name themselves. Want to express the depth of the mystery? Stop identifying. Want to express the shallowness of manifestation? Differentiate. Either way, no one can tell. The difference is in your experience. We're going to bring Melissa up. I'll come back to 1 in a moment. Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Martin John. How are you?
Well, it's Monday morning. You heading off to school?
Yep, getting my shoes on now. And, I was feeling, I don't know, a little different today. And I really couldn't put my finger on what the difference is. And then you started talking, and, you were talking about words not being able to express things. And, so I think, I don't know if maybe 1 was supposed to be my number today.
Let's look at it.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me some more.
So I'll go ahead and read it again, and then we'll see if anything pops out at you, if anything stands out, or maybe we'll just start to have a conversation about it. Words are particular. They cannot express Tao. To have a name is to be limited to manifestation. That which is nameless is the source of manifestation. Self-referential, those who name themselves. Want to experience the depth of the mystery? Stop identifying. Want to experience the shallowness of manifestation? Differentiate. Either way, no one can tell. The difference is in your experience.
So there were 2 lines that stood out. The one about experiencing the depth of the mystery, and nobody being able to tell the difference.
Yeah. And that's kind of the crux of this. So there are a couple things that really, like, this idea of, we'll find out later in the Tao that wanting is a thing that we do that really the Tao says, if the less you want, the more you can be open to what is going on around you. What it says is, if you want to experience the depth of the mystery, if you put that above experiencing the shallowness of manifestation, then stop identifying with the world around you. It just says, it's very simple. This is all you have to do. But then it comes to that, either way, nobody could tell. And the thing is why would you want to do one or the other? Like, the only reason that you want to do something would be to expose that to someone else. To be like, look at how great I'm doing. Look at how special I am, or whatever, or look at how shallow I am, or whatever. It's always because that's the identifying. Those are the words. Your experience, trying to put words on it, reduces that experience to something that you can understand. But when you sit back and you say, something's changed, far out, like, let's see what happens now. Let's see what's going on. And yeah, it might be something that we might consider bad, or it might be something that we might consider good. But either way, by just raising your awareness to the idea that something subtle has shifted, and then just sort of allowing yourself to live in that new shift without having to express what it is. To have a name is to be limited to manifestation. So something may have shifted well beyond manifestation. It might have shifted deep inside of you. It's interesting. Timing is always interesting, because a lot of times when I work with clients and stuff, like, it's a year after that things really start to become solid, because it takes a long time. And you've been listening to this show for a long time, and sometimes, and you've been doing this work for a long time. And so one of the things that, we have to recognize is that we're constantly changing. But we're not always privy to that change. We don't always have access to what that change is. I always like to remind people that once you recognize how you've changed, you're already changing beyond that. Because for you to recognize the change that's happening means it has been changing for months, if not years. It has been slowly changing. And now it's like, oh, wait, something's different.
Yeah.
And there's just, I don't know what that difference is. There's a lightness in your heart. There's less stress. There's less tension. And those things, you'll get comfortable here. You'll get comfortable in this space. And you'll get more attuned to the subtle, and you'll find tightness again. But that tightness is not going to be the same tightness that it was a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. It's going to be new, and you're going to be new. And as we, and this is why it says self-referential, those who name themselves. Because once you identify what has changed, you then allow yourself to identify to this new person that you are, rather than being constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly changing, and constantly just in a state of awe with who you are. You solidify yourself. You anchor yourself to some new identity. And that's why it says, do you want to experience the depth of the mystery? Then you just stop identifying. Want to experience the shallowness of manifestation? Differentiate. Either way, no one can tell. The difference is in your experience. No matter which you do, it is always your experience that is different. how people will see you, that's all about how they see themselves.
Wow. Yeah. I really think it might be part of like what you were talking about with that need to go and produce and produce and produce. And I think that's maybe like what you were saying, that's something that's been shifting for a while in me. And I've finally come to the depth of understanding that it's ridiculous. Nobody knows that anxiety and that feeling inside of me that I need to show or produce or be, or I just, it's stupid. And I know you've been telling me for a long time, Martin John, everything's stupid, but sometimes it takes a little while for things to get through my thick skull.
It's such a freeing thing. And I understand, the need to, cause I'm probably one of the only voices that you hear, not that I'm the only voice in the world saying this, but I'm, there's probably not a lot of voices. From what I know on this app, there's me and then maybe Dr. Rao as well. Like, right. We're the ones that kind of are kind of talking about these sorts of things. And I can understand everywhere else in your life, you just have people telling you to produce.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Even the people that love you are telling you to be productive. Don't be lazy or this and that. And it's like, and so, like doubting yourself is a part of that journey. Doubting that message is a part of that journey. Allowing that message to take its time to embed itself in you. And then you not identifying as a person who believes this, but you continue to question it, you continue to explore it, you continue to experience it as this with awe from the space of, oh, far out. Everything is stupid. And then you go on to your next thing, and then you say, oh, far out. Like, look, watch this happen. Let me just observe this for a while without having to respond so quickly. I can just let it all unfold for itself. And then when I'm inspired, boom, I can take action without having to identify, without having to give it a name, without having to give myself an identity. I can do a thing without holding on to the results, without trying to take credit, without all of that stuff.
Well, I find it very interesting that you mentioned yourself and Dr. Rao, and nothing against all the other wonderful
of course
that we have here, but I do have to admit that those are, you and Dr. Rao are the two that I have been tuning into the most lately, and I've noticed that about you, Martin John, that you're a very keen observer, and I think you know this about yourself. I know I'm not saying anything that is new, or because it's all freaking stupid, and yeah. So yeah, I'm just, like I said, feeling a little different today, and maybe it is that I just don't feel that need to go and do and make myself crazy trying to go and do and just be. And I know you've been saying that for a long time, my dude. So maybe it's sunk in. I don't know.
And this too shall pass. And this too shall pass. And that's the
I don't
great
want it
thing.
to pass. I want it to stay.
Right, yeah. But that's a problem in and of itself, like the wanting, right? That's why it says, want to experience the depth of the mystery, stop identifying. Want to experience the shallowness of manifestation, differentiate. Thing is by you not identifying, you got here. And then you say, I want this to continue. That's identifying, which means that you now are you are now back to experiencing the shallowness of manifestation in a different place. And that's
myself in the ass, huh?
Right. So that is like the pop will eat itself, right? Like the dog chasing its tail. And it's like, no, that's not it. There's this, I think it's a meditation. I think it's called neti. I'm not exactly sure if that's the right thing, but it's like, not this, and so it's this meditation where you just kind of constantly bring up objects in your mind and or concepts in your mind or religions or whatever, anything, and it's always and the meditation is not this. It's like you look at it, is this important? And then you realize that it's not important. Your body's not important. Your hands aren't important. Your ability to move isn't important. Your ability for relationships isn't important. All of these things, that's not who you are. What you are is much bigger than that. And it's not this. And so once we start to identify, though, we start to box ourselves in. Even in identifying that something has shifted. Like, yes, something has shifted, but something's always shifting. Now you're aware of it far out. And then you just live your life today. And then you say, what does Melissa today? How does today's Melissa respond to this interaction? And we don't have to measure it from yesterday. We don't have to. We can. But then that's identifying again. So if we can just respond as we are today in this moment, you're not going to have proof. Either way, no one can tell. You're not going to have proof that you have changed. It's not going to be so conspicuous. But you will have. You have. And it will produce ripples in your life and in the people's lives that you are connected with. And that's more than we can ask. It's amazing.
Well, far out, my friend. I'm going to go and do my Monday, and you go do your Monday, and I love you.
I love you. Have a great one.
You too.
Ciao. I'm going to bring up Dio. Man, Dio, it's been a while. How are you, dear?
Yeah, I am wonderful, Martin John. And how about you?
I'm great. Life is easy.
Great. Yes. And I don't think it's been lucky. I think it's not been too long. Yes. So I've been listening in, and I think I feel like there's a number of sub themes that have been touched on, and I wanted to start by asking the part about manifestation and shallowness. And was that part of something written down that you would be able to recap?
Yeah. So we were talking about number one, right? You know how this show works. You pick a number, and we picked number one, and we're talking about expressing Tao. And the Tao starts, the first verse of the Tao really kind of starts with words cannot express Tao. Tao and our relationship with Tao and our relationship with living from this place, connected to Tao, connected to God, however we want to connect it to the universe, however we want to express it, is something that is mysterious in some way. We don't know that, and that connection is not part of the manifestation. That connection that we have to God, universe, Tao, whatever, is not something that can be witnessed in the manifestation. It's something that we experience inside. It's something that we experience in a deep sort of way that can't be seen from the outside. So when we're talking with Melissa, I was talking about, do you want to experience the depth of the mystery of Tao and living? You stop identifying with who you think you are, with what you think you're trying to accomplish, and you just allow yourself to live, because life is the purpose, right? It's not productivity. It's not being praised from others, other things like that, right? It's like really, really loving yourself, because everything in the universe that you're witnessing is a mirror for you. And then it says, want to experience the shallowness of manifestation, differentiate. Differentiate. One thing is better than the other. One thing is more important than the other. And you differentiate everything in the universe. So you say, okay, this person is better than this person. This outcome is better than this outcome. And then you can experience the shallowness of manifestation through that experience of differentiating, because you say, like, this action is better than that action. This outcome is better than this outcome. And then you start to differentiate one thing from the other. And the next line in the thing, either way, no one can tell. No one can tell whether you're experiencing the depth of the mystery or the shallowness of manifestation. No one else can tell. That difference is in your experience. So the only way that all you're doing is experiencing things differently. You're not actually like nobody around you can know what you're actually experiencing. So you could live your life and differentiate and be filled with sadness and struggle and frustration and all these things, but no one can tell, because maybe you're wealthy or you're successful in some external way, but you could still be experiencing deep loneliness.
Thank you for walking me through all of that and the full context. So yes, I think the part that resonated with me and caught my attention was so perhaps not the core message, but an aspect of, I would say, a secondary message. And around I had the shallowness and manifestation. Maybe if you're doing good works and being watched, and you mentioned taking credit, perhaps for good works. And so that part, it got me thinking about. It's the term the observer effect is not. It may not be exactly applicable, but I'm going to use it here. And I think as humans, when we're doing things and how it's touched on an observer effect, which I think can really be a real thing. And if you're doing, it might be good works. It could just be, completing a task or something a bit more traditional in the charity sense. And how sometimes it can feel different when you're being observed doing it or being praised for doing it. Or as you mentioned, taking credit for doing it. And I feel like this is something that I'm not sure whether it's like, is it frowned upon if one is doing good works?
So you keep referencing good works.
Yes.
So that initially kind of starts off at who's defining good here. So if you're saying I'm doing good works, well, that in and of itself, that statement is taking into consideration an observer.
Indeed. Well, I suppose if the individual was self-defining good work.
That good still has to have a measure. If you are not referring to an external, then you do your work, regardless of how other people define it. So your argument is taking into consideration without allowing, right? Because you've referenced good works. I don't know.
Let me help more. Let's take the example of, so if I put this under the category, I'll use two examples. There's one example that comes to mind, and it's, for me, maybe it's doing things I know my future self will thank me for. So a good works, quote unquote, for, let's say me, it could simply be going to the gym and doing a workout. Okay, that is something I've agreed within myself that it's good for me, and it might not always feel great today, but I know it's working into my further goals. Yes, I've taken some external scientific information to know it's good for me, but I think that that's okay. But it's something I'm doing for me, and that feels a certain way. Okay. Now let's say, and this is me, I might decide to post it on maybe one of my social media. Oh, I got this workout in today. Then I might get some emojis, some well done, some feel goods, and that it feels good with that external
Yeah.
side of it. And that
I
was
will I will
one
I
of
will
the
argue that
questions.
cocaine feels good as well.
So it's hitting those the similar sort of brain chemistry, the neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
But
And
both of them.
I'm not trying to say the social media thing and exercise and all that kind of stuff is bad, but all those things can become addictions if you are measuring the world from those standpoints.
Yeah.
And you obviously are, to an
Yeah.
extent, right? Again, like, like when we talk about all these things, we have to be honest about what we're and especially if we're talking about it from this standpoint of Tao, right? So this deep thing, like your value, and you're doing something that is good for your future self, and let's say whatever, like you have an idea of your future self is going to thank you. Well, if you go to the gym and hurt yourself and you're laid up for 6 weeks, was that good for you? And now how do we define good? So back to the original, because the original definition of good is still being defined by other people, or other experiences that you've had. And then the secondary, drug, right? The secondary measurement is the response you get on social media. And then so there's multiple layers of influence that is coming in that would behoove us to recognize.
Yeah, and I think for me it's helpful, I think, in terms of the layers on what's defining good. I would say for me, where there's science and there's proof and experiments, yes, you can quote unquote overtrain or injure or whatnot, but I think, yeah, for me, the scientific aspect, and whether we use the word good, if we remove it and say the word beneficial, strengthening lung capacity and all of that stuff, I'm comfortable separating the the science part of that. Now, with the what you refer to in terms of the being watched, the taking credit, how that feels, and separating the two, because I think it is better perceived. It's interesting. It's well, when I say better perceived, or it's more acceptable, it's seen as more noble, perhaps, to be doing things, and the external observation and appreciation is not sought after. So say now we do see like there is a sort of a social media. So,
Yeah, but it's not bad to seek out those things either, right? Like, so this is another place that the problem comes in, where it's just like, well, are you inspired to share on social media? Because if you're inspired to share on social media, why not? That's absolutely fine. Now, if you're inspired to share on social media so that you can get that boost, and you can, right, it's all about purpose, and it's all about like who are you, and who do you believe yourself to be, and how are you identifying with these things? That's the big question here, because either way, no one can tell. The difference is in your experience. Now, what experiences are you cultivating? Like, are you experiencing something that like causes you stress? Like, oh, I didn't get as many likes on this post. Maybe I need to do a post like I did last time so I can get more. What is your experience of this? And you can't actually pretend to have an experience, right? And just like make it up and say, oh, well, if I did this, then this would happen. You have to actually have the experience. So you actually have to do it so that you can have the experience. And then you can say, actually, I don't like that I had that experience.
And let me clarify here. Social media is just being used as one example.
Oh,
So with
absolutely.
the concept that I shared in terms of the appreciation, it could be the homemaker at home that's cleared up the family's laundry and the job is done, and how it makes a difference when the family get home and if they notice it and
Right.
express some kind of gratitude. And there's the satisfaction maybe the individual may get from doing the laundry clear up, or they might not. It might be awful.
They might resent it. They might not like it. And so to become aware of the experience that you're actually having.
And then how it does feel good. I'll speak for everyone, but in my case, like even with things like that, home things, it does feel good when an external party notices and expresses some kind of.
You don't know that.
I'm saying that's what I've experienced.
Right. Someone may do the laundry and clean up everything, and then someone recognizes it and thanks them, and it could actually make them feel worse. We don't know. And it could make them feel worse because it's like, I don't like doing this, damn it. And you're going to praise me for it? Don't praise me for this because this isn't where I want to find praise. We don't know. Like for us individually, maybe, yes, I can say that it makes me feel good, but we can't just make that assumption.
Oh, yes. And I was referring to myself and saying that if I complete something, it does feel nice afterwards if somebody observes,
recognizes it,
and says some kind of something about it.
You're going to drop off. I would love to continue this and get you to pick a number if you have a moment to continue that conversation. I would understand if you don't. But yes, it is a. I agree that, like for myself, if I did something for someone, I want encouragement, I want support and things like that. And that's why it's so important to understand that it is about our experience because we don't know. And then if I do something and don't get that praise, is that then going to inhibit my doing it again? Or
that's partially what I was getting to, and how much that is tied in. And you said, and it could be something for other people. It could be something for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The experience, and how much one is tied into that.
Yeah, and that's why like this specific, like number one, So before the whole wanting to experience the depth of the mystery or the shallowness of manifestation, and it could appear, because this is the first verse of the Tao, that depth and shallowness have judgments to them. But there is no judgment, because it's just saying, if you want to experience this, do this. If you want to experience this, do this. No. Nobody cares what you experience. That's up to you. Either way, no one can tell. The difference is in your experience. If you find a joy in experiencing the shallowness of manifestation, experience it. Post on social media. And if that gets shallow, if that gets to a place that it is not fulfilling for you, then change. You don't have to identify with being a social media maven. You can just change because you're not identifying with what you do. You're just doing something because it's bringing you something that you want. And that's absolutely okay. But it says right before that, self-referential, those who name themselves. It's like when you name something as good or bad, what you're doing is you're identifying yourself in the world. You aren't naming that thing. You're saying, this is good. Well, this is good for you. This is good in your life. This is good. And so this is how you identify yourself, by wanting or not wanting a thing or another thing, or by, identifying something as good. Like you identify yourself more than you identify that thing. Like you can say working out is good. Well, for you. And so right. And that's not necessarily going to be the case for everybody, especially in the way that you work out or and in the story of like, well, I might not want to do it, but I know my future self, like you're identifying yourself through all of this, so self-referential, because we only can reference ourselves because we can't understand other people. We're constantly identifying ourselves in the world by either judging or by measuring or by exposing that measurement in one way or another.
Thank you. Awesome. Now, do I have time to pick a number?
Yes, you do. Come on.
Okay.
Between 1 and 81, if you don't recall.
I'm going to go for 25.
25. Interesting. I call it Tao is the title of this. And what's interesting is just that, it is about naming, right? I call it Tao. So, before the manifestation of heaven, there is void. It is still and has no form. Inexhaustible, it reaches everywhere. It is at the core of everything. Since names became important, it has been called Tao. It flows amongst manifestation without resistance, inside, outside, conscious, and subconscious. Tao is great. Universes are great. Planets are great. Beings are great. These four are all great and follow the law of their principle. All beings follow their planet. Planets follow the universe. Universes follow Tao. Tao follows only its nature. Did any line stand out to you there?
No, not in this particular one.
Okay. Well, I want to go in and talk. What's that?
Maybe because it was about the Tao.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, that things that popped out to me for this is it flows amongst manifestation without resistance, inside, outside, conscious, and subconscious. We were talking a little bit ago about like good, the word good, and being like, well, that's a measurement, and we don't know who's making that measurement. And it's like, if you say it's good for me to, the word healthy doesn't mean anything. We use it a lot. We use like this isn't healthy. This isn't healthy, whether it's smoking or whether it's a Snicker bar or whatever it is. It's like we talk about things as being healthy and unhealthy. And there are judgments that we have in our lives when we engage things that other people measure as unhealthy. But we can find all sorts of, arguments to that in different people's experience. And there is at some point in someone's life in which the Snicker bar is going to be the exact thing that they need. Where they're low on glucose and they need the sugars and they need this many nuts and they need all of these sort of things. And that's going to be the healthiest thing that they can eat at that moment, because that's what they need. That's what their body needs. Now, is that going to be universal and what have you? Probably not, but that's not universal for anybody, that one food is going to be the thing that's going to be healthy for them. And that's the thing, like Tao is flowing in all areas, like, so and we're inspired by Tao at all times. And so it says here that we follow our planet, right? It says here that Tao is great, universes are great, planets are great, beings are great, and all these follow the law of their principle. We follow the law of our planet. And on our planet, there's all of these things that we could engage in, like social media. And Tao doesn't care if we engage in social media, but as it stated in the first one, we got to look at our experience. Are we enjoying engaging in this? Are we enjoying the results of engaging in this?
Indeed. Yeah, it's, I think it's interesting in terms of, I mean, especially a term like healthy, terms like good and bad. I do already sort of fully understand it's quite, and, it's, how could I put this? Oftentimes I hear it in the popular narrative. I hear this in movies, Hollywood movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my very, indirect kind way of, English is spoken and used differently in different regions, right? Different regions
Yeah.
of the world. And, I hear frequently a lot in American English. And when I say American English, I'm saying popular narrative, movies, scripted, not necessarily real life, sometimes real life. And I hear things like somebody will say, I'm not a bad person,
Mm-hmm.
or you're a good person. Oh, he's bad. He's good. And it's
Right.
a conversation I have a lot, with my American friends where, uh, it's a phrasing that sticks out to me because it's one that I'm not familiar with. And where maybe, somebody will look, I don't know, you did this, and the person goes, I'm not a bad person. And this sort of absolution of good or bad. And of course, we know that the reality is, it's somewhere in the middle, but then
Yeah. Yeah.
you've added this extra layer of who's defining it. And you're challenging some of the universal things that, to me, if you were to ask me before this conversation, movement is good, drinking water is good, refined, heavy calorie density things with less nutrition. Now, I know even within Noom, it's helpful. They didn't say good or bad, but we could say it's unhelpful, it's detrimental, it is less likely to seed certain outcomes than other outcomes. And you're challenging this here and sort of adding the for me aspect, or healthy, or unhealthy, and yeah, that's
Yeah, and it always comes back for me to your experience of it. Like I talk about this idea, like, do you like that you're doing this? This is a phrase that I use a lot. Do you like that you're doing this? Not do you like doing it? And I always take the Oreo cookie as an example. Oreo cookie, you like an Oreo cookie. You're gonna like an Oreo cookie. Like it's designed to be liked, like whatever. And that isn't going to change. For most people, that's never going to change. It's just going to be like, yes, the Oreo cookie is designed to be liked and I like it. However, when I have one Oreo cookie, I could like the Oreo cookie and I can like that I'm eating the Oreo cookie. After two, you can be like, okay, I still like that I'm doing this. But then at three, it's like, yes, I still like the Oreo cookie, but I don't like that I'm doing it. Whether or not it's healthy or unhealthy, or there's story behind why you're doing it, or why you should, quote unquote, stop doing it, and all of these things. What is your experience of it? Your experience of it is that you don't like that you're doing it anymore. Now, does that mean you're going to stop at 3? No, that's not necessarily the case. You may stop at 15, but you didn't necessarily like that you were doing it. But not recognizing your experience is the thing that's causing the grief. It isn't the Oreo cookie. It's that you're not recognizing that you don't like that you're doing it anymore. And you may not like, and you may, go to the gym and not like going to the gym, but you like that you're going to the gym. Huge difference. You may not like doing it, but you may like that you're doing it. Or you may like it, but not like that you're engaging in it. Now, what is your experience of this moment, of this thing that you're doing right now? Not your idea of the thing, but what is your experience of it?
Yeah, that's definitely, that's a helpful way to dissect the two, of enjoying doing it and then, yeah, liking that you are doing it. Hmm.
Like I can say I like pumpkin pie, but I don't like that I eat pumpkin pie because it messes with my mind. Like after I eat any kind of refined sugar, I know I'm not thinking clearly. And that might not happen for a day or two, but I know that it happens because I've witnessed it for myself. And I know that the sugar is part of that thing. So I know that I don't like that I do it. Now, it takes me years to get to a place where I'm not going to do something that I like just because I don't like that I do it. Like I know I smoked for a year of just not liking that I did it before I finally ended up quitting. But then once I quit, I realized what I was sacrificing by smoking. And then I haven't smoked since because I don't like that I do it. That I did it, like, and I don't, and I realized that I don't like it, so that it takes so much. And I always tell people, no big deal. You're going to do it until you don't. You're going to eat Oreo cookies until you stop. But once you recognize you don't like that you're doing something, that is the way you open up the door to, once again, becoming the person that you are.
The person you are. And then what about the person you want to be?
Well, you'll never achieve that. Because the person you want to be today is obviously not who you are.
Yeah.
And the person you want to be tomorrow is different than the person you want to be today. And that is obviously, again, not who you are.
So shifting.
Yeah, it's constantly shifting. Now, if you could...
the journey.
Yeah, right. It's absolutely the journey. Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah. The person you want to be is desire, right? That's the state of desire. And that's the state of discontent. The Tao says there's no bigger waste of time or energy than being discontent.
And maybe the next time we'll speak around, because that's often something that does play on my mind. Future self you want to be, and not being discontented in between.
You are who you are, and that's perfect. And I always tell people, one of my quotes is like, don't let your definition of perfection rob you of yours. And that's a big deal, because your definition of perfection, the definition that you've picked up in the world around you is not who you are. And that future self of yours, that idea of your perfection or whatever, like it's just discrediting all that you are. And that puts you in a state of discontent and puts you in that state regularly, and you are perfect. Now, that doesn't mean that things aren't going to change, but as long as you're kind of aware, as long as you become aware of the experience that you're having and allow yourself to adjust, to, recognize the things you like and you don't like that you're doing, then you'll move forward fairly quickly. JK, how are you today?
Hello?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, good.
Okay, good.
I love the conversation we were just having because number one, I swear you haven't said anything about an Oreo cookie in a really long time. And I happened to have an Oreo cookie yesterday. And thinking about the fact as I'm eating it, wondering, not liking that I'm doing it. The first moment was fine. And then as I finished it, I was like, oh, because I know that I don't feel well when I eat stuff like that. My stomach, and I'm even more sensitive to it now that I don't eat it, very often.
Right.
And my body just reacts it gets very angry at me. now, even if I just have one or many. And, finding and I say quote unquote good in that, and knowing that in that moment is good for me in some way, not bad. And it's hard because of our language, like you were talking about with Dio. Um, we put language around it, but knowing that moment is what it is, and that we define whether we like or not. And I really do love that conversation, because even as I'm laying in bed this morning, I like getting up early. I like going for my walk. Hey, good morning. I like doing all these things. And I needed to stay in bed this morning. And so I'm laying there and I'm fighting myself because I should get up. I should get up.
Yeah.
I will feel better if I get up. And I don't know if I'm going to feel better or not when I get up. I might not. I might feel better if I just stayed in bed. And when my body's ready to get up, get up. And then I picked my number, and it was that verse about, receiving with tranquility all things that we're presented with.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was really beautiful. And I thought it was very, relevant to what you're talking about in terms of, how we experience the manifestation or the depths. And sometimes you're going to receive both. You're going to experience both. And being able to be open to that experience, whatever it is, regardless of how it feels, has been, it's challenging, because I mean, like I've been struggling lately. Like I have a lot going on right now, and at home, and trying to navigate all of that and be open to the idea that, hey, this too is good, like whatever you want to call it, but being open to that experience, and being open to saying, okay, this is something you've got to look at. This is something you've got to deal with. And being able to get that experience and receive it with tranquility allows you to see what else it can offer you. It's not just about the one thing. And so, I don't know, that's where I went.
Yeah. So that was 61, the number that you
Mm-hmm.
picked. I'll go ahead and read it just so people can be on the same page. And it's your number, so we'll talk about that a little bit. Being great is the title. Being great requires the ability to be humble, so as to receive that which is attractive with tranquility. Attraction is the most primal of expressions. To receive that which is attractive is to know oneself. All great beings realize when they err, having realized that they admit it and correct it to the best of their ability. The greatest beings seek out those who can help identify their faults. They consider their enemy a part of themselves that requires attention. To be centered in Tao is to nourish all related things, to not interfere or meddle in the errors of others. While I was reading this, a couple things came to mind. One, the greatest beings seek out those who can help identify their faults. Even the Oreo cookie is someone who can help identify your fault.
Sure can.
And they consider their enemy, whether or not that is sugar or an Oreo cookie or whatever, a part of themselves that requires attention. I need to pay attention to this part of myself that is craving, let's say, an Oreo cookie, or that is eating an Oreo cookie when I know I don't like that I do it, right? And this all starts with being great requires the ability to be humble. When you lose your humility, especially when it relates to food, let's say, because we've been talking about food and the exercise and all of this kind of stuff. When you lose your humility, you think you have power over the Oreo cookie. You think you can have will over but the Oreo cookie has a will of its own. Mm-hmm. I remember one time, I talk a lot about the idea that will is great, but at 2:00 in the morning when you have to get up to go to the bathroom and you know there's chocolate cake in the fridge, like, and you get a little, once you get a little hint in your mind of like, I want a little piece of that cake, you're not going to win. You're not going to win that argument. That argument is won by the chocolate cake simply by its being there. You know, like, and you're going to stop at the fridge and you're going to take a little piece of frosting, and it's going to be a little slice, a very, very thin slice, and nobody knows. And like, and here you are, like, but like the humility comes with being like, this is like, once you know, once you can be humble to the power of sugar, once you can be humble to the power of, you know, even the power of entropy. You know, the power that if I stop moving, then I won't, you know, like that's not to say that you staying in bed was a bad thing. But if you did that for a week or 3 days even, you'd be like, no. Something's got to change. Even though I'm feeling comfortable here, I have to get out and I have to move. And you know, like because your experience is, actually, I don't like that I'm doing this anymore. If you can recognize that, I don't, you know, like you can be like, I like that I'm laying in bed, but I don't like that I'm doing it, and leave it at that for a little while. But then after a couple of days, you're like, now I don't like that I'm doing it. I'm going to do something about it. And it's like recognizing and being humble to the power of the things around you, whether it's the sugar, whether it's the, you know, the entropy, whether it's the you know, like just the rest or whatever. And attraction is the most primal of expressions. So you're attracting this experience. Mm-hmm. And if you can receive that which is attractive, which is the chocolate cake, the Oreo cookie, the things or whatever, that is to know yourself. You've attracted this. So pay attention. This is who you are. You have attracted this conversation. You have attracted this experience. You've attracted this moment. So pay attention. This is telling you about who you are. All great beings realize when they err. And then that moves into the idea of error, where it's just like, oh, I don't like that I'm doing this and I'm continuing to do it. And you know, like I don't like that I'm continuing to do it. And then there's this coupling of all of this stuff. And then that's the error. Having realized it, they admit it and correct it to the best of their ability. And I love how that's written, even though I wrote it, so that's great. But to the best of their ability. At this moment, you're not going to do anything about it. Maybe you don't like that you're doing it, and you're going to continue to eat the Oreo cookies, no big deal. But you're going to do it to the best of your ability and correct it to the best of your ability. And then you're going to seek out those who can help identify your faults. So beautiful. And this is how we become great, right? And this isn't, you know, like we were talking with Dio about the idea of perfect and not allowing your definition of perfection to rob you of yours. Yeah, you're perfect right now. You are great right now. You're doing all of these things right now.
Yeah. And I finally, you know, it you know, you get glimpses and then you go and you get more glimpses and you go back and it all flows, you know, all flows.
And you can't skip any of those.
No.
Because you're gonna end up in the next place empty. And you're not going to know why it's taking place. You're not going to understand you're not going to get the gift of that lesson of that moment.
Yeah. And I heard when you read it, I heard this verse a little different, you know, when you seek out, and then the tranquility part, the part of seeking out those, you know, I forget what it says, but
the greatest beings seek out those who can help identify their faults.
Yeah. And that's everything, right? Everything can do that. And you know, like you said, the Oreo cookie and listening to that. And then again, coming back up to, you know, receive that with tranquility. And then you can see the magic and you can see the beauty and the gift and the perfection in that too. Yeah. And then when you see perfection, you see yourself, the perfection in yourself.
That's right.
And that's really like when, you know, through our work together and just knowing you, being able to come to that. And eventually, even when it's tumultuous in my life,
Mhm.
I am able, even if I'm sitting there and thinking, but
Oh, you got a call. There is some other something that might be work, so I'm going to let that go
sorry.
for a
Yeah.
little while. Go.
Eddie,
No, you're
Eddie,
fine.
is FaceTiming me because he
Oh, okay.
gets a hold of the phone and it's funny. Anyway, yes, this idea of being able to see that perfection in a tumultuous time, because there's this other part of me that kind of is observing all of this happening to me. So I might be feeling victimized, or I might feel like, oh, this person did something to me, or whatever I'm feeling at the
Right.
moment. But I'm
Yeah.
always watching, and this other part of me watching and saying, I wonder how this is going to play out. I wonder where, when I'm going to see myself in this, and how this is going to be utilized going forward, because it's interesting, because you're curious, not so much, wanting to know. And I talked a lot about that because that was a big trigger for me recently. My knowing and understanding being the same thing for me, and not realizing it, thinking I'm trying to understand something, and just really because I was uncomfortable not knowing, and being able to find that place where I'm like, oh, I'm saying the same thing, just a little different.
Right.
And coming back to that, but in that, and not knowing. And the more my life structure, my life kind of, I'm getting rid of more of those structures, the more I have to depend on myself. And
Yeah.
really, you have to be able, well, I have to be able to know myself, because if you don't know yourself, I mean, how do you find that trust? And it is hard, because you don't see what's there. You can't see it. You can't touch it. There's no factual concrete structure in this. But yet you're drawn to it. That primal, it's something very primal,
Yeah.
and you're drawn to it, and you allow that attraction to drive you, as opposed to having proof. And it's scary as all get out, but
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
you're still doing it, and then this idea of me observing it when I don't like that I'm doing something. I didn't even think about picking up the Oreo cookie. I wasn't even thinking about it. So that thing does have a will of its own, it was
Absolutely.
there, and I picked it up and I put it in my mouth, and I was like, oh, this is not going to feel good later, and really being able to see, okay, well, how does that not feeling good? And that might be why I needed to stay in bed longer.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, but not
Absolutely.
resisting that need anymore, that resisting that moment, and just allowing, because I laid in bed and I said, you're resisting, just lay in bed. Your body's tired. You want to lay here. Don't get up, try it
Right.
just a few minutes. And it was a few minutes, and I wound up falling back to sleep.
Beautiful.
And then I woke up, and it was great. But I knew I was resisting. So this constant observation, but trusting myself ultimately. And it's a process. So
it is absolutely a process.
thanks for letting me share today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm glad that we got to read 61. I like that verse quite a bit. So appreciate it.
All right.
All right. We'll talk later. Love you. So, yeah, we talked about 1, 25, and 61 today. Thank you, Dio and Melissa and JK, for coming up. Such great conversations. It is, it's not all so cut and dry. Tao doesn't care, how we're experiencing things. It just gives us the experience that we need to be able to grow. And like it says, so as to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. Are you attracting a certain experience? Do you not like that you're doing something? You're going to grow. And so not liking that you do it, pay attention. You don't like that you do it. And if you don't like that you do something, you don't have to change that right now, but you can just recognize, like JK might not have liked that she wanted to rest, but she needed it. And so she allowed herself to take a pause, fell back to sleep. It's beautiful. It was very productive. If we want to talk about things as productive. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm Martin John. And if you benefit from the work that I do here on Tao of the Day, please check out the links in my profile on both Linktree and my website. You can find places to support the show, either buy me a coffee or my Venmo. And I'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Central Time. And until then, keep recovering yourself.